The salvager and the stranger, Naomi Parker's boots echoed through the abandoned corridor of the derelict ship. 19 years as a salvager had taught her to recognize value in others' trash, but nothing prepared her for this find. The vessel, once a research transport for Helios Corporation, now floated lifeless at the edge of the Cygnus sector. "Payday," she whispered through her breather mask, sweeping her scanner across the darkness. The device chirped insistently toward a sealed compartment. Not scrap metal. Something alive. Naomi hesitated before overriding the security panel. Corporate salvage had rules: take the tech, ignore the secrets. Breaking those rules meant trouble. Her fingers paused over the keypad, then decisively punched the override code. "Sweet stars," she gasped as the compartment hissed open, revealing a cryopod. Frost-covered glass concealed a human form inside a man, early 30s perhaps, with features sharp as cut crystal. A discarded label read, "Project Ascendant, Specimen D7. Not a passenger." Cargo HFY unit buzzed. Parker found anything worthwhile? It was Jensen, her contact at the salvage guild. "Just scrap," she lied, eyes fixed on the pod's life support readings. "Functional, but failing. Nothing special." "Wrap it up then. That Hulk's reactor is showing instability." The transmission ended, leaving Naomi with a choice. Corporation specimens meant genetic engineering, illegal and dangerous. But the steady rhythm on the life support display wasn't some experiment. It was a heartbeat. "Right, stranger," she muttered, engaging the pod's emergency release. "Let's get you home." The ship groaned around her as she disconnected the pod from its moorings. Her own vessel, the Horizon Seeker, waited in the docking bay, barely large enough for her salvage, let alone a cryopod. She'd have to sacrifice the scrap she'd collected as Naomi maneuvered the floating pod through the corridors. The man inside stirred. His eyelids fluttered against the frost. Impossible cryosleep should keep him under until properly revived. A violent shudder ran through the derelict. Jensen hadn't exaggerated about the reactor. Naomi quickened her pace, pushing the pod into her ship's cargo hold just as another tremor nearly threw her off her feet. The engines of her small craft hummed to life as she initiated emergency launch procedures. Through the viewport, she watched the research vessel's hull begin to fracture as she pulled away, safe, but now burdened with questions. A passenger in the cargo hold. The pod systems beeped urgently. The revival process had initiated itself, likely triggered by the rough transport. Naomi watched through the frosted glass as the man inside began to wake. The pod seal released with a hiss, and eyes the color of burnished copper opened to meet hers. Confusion? Fear? Then something like wonder crossed his face. "Who?" His voice cracked from disuse. "Naomi Parker. I salvage things." She offered a canteen of water. "Found you abandoned on that ship?" His fingers trembled as he reached for the water. "Darian?" he whispered after drinking. "My name is Darian Voss." "Well, Darian Voss, you were tossed away like garbage." She adjusted the thermal blanket around his shoulders. "Lucky for you, I recognize value when I see it." A faint smile touched his lips before alarm replaced it. "They'll come looking." "You shouldn't have too late now." Naomi gestured to the viewport, where the research vessel was breaking apart. "That ship's about to be stardust, and according to its logs, so are you." As explosions bloomed silently in the vacuum behind them, Darian's eyes held hers. "Why save me?" Naomi studied his face. Not just genetically perfect, but human, present, alive. "Because," she said simply, plotting a course away from Helios space, "I saw more than an experiment. I saw someone worth saving." Running from shadows, Helios Station hung like a tarnished coin against the velvet of space. Naomi docked the Horizon Seeker at the outer ring, away from primary security scanners. 3 days had passed since she'd rescued Darian. Days spent watching him recover with unnatural speed, another sign of his engineered nature. "Keep your hood up," she instructed as they entered the crowded concourse. "This place has eyes everywhere." Darian nodded, staying close as they navigated through the press of bodies. His eyes, now disguised with cheap cosmetic lenses, darted nervously from face to face. "Your friend can be trusted?" he asked, Renzo isn't exactly a friend, Naomi clarified, leading him toward the lower markets. But he specializes in new identities, and he owes me. The market throbbed with life and commerce, legal and otherwise. Darian flinched at the sensory overload, his enhanced senses still adjusting to freedom after years in cryosleep. Naomi noticed, her hand finding his elbow to steady him. "Breathe," she whispered. "Focus on my voice." His gaze locked with hers, finding anchor. Something unspoken passed between them, fragile, yet unmistakable. Renzo's shop was tucked between a noodle stand and a parts dealer. The forger looked up from his workbench, eyes widening at the sight of Naomi. "Parker, thought you'd be halfway to the rim by now." His smile faded as Darian entered. "Who's the companion?" "Someone who needs to disappear," Naomi answered. "Complete package identity, history, credentials." Renzo's gaze lingered suspiciously on Darian. "That's expensive work. I've got credits." She placed a chip on the counter. While Renzo examined the payment, Naomi noticed Darian tense. He was staring at a news broadcast on a nearby screen. Helios Corporation's security alert for a dangerous stolen asset. Her stomach sank. They were hunting him already. Later, in a rented room levels below the main concourse, Darian paced like a caged animal. "They'll never stop looking," he said. "I should leave, risked enough." Naomi shook her head. "And go where?" "Into their waiting arms." "You don't understand what I am." Frustration edged his voice. "What they made me for, then tell me." Silence hung between them before Darian sighed, sinking onto the edge of the bed. "I was designed as a soldier. Enhanced strength, heightened senses, accelerated healing, the perfect weapon. But I questioned orders. Showed empathy when I should have shown ruthlessness." His laugh was hollow. "Fatal flaws in a weapon." Naomi sat beside him, their shoulders touching. "Sounds like what makes you human." His copper eyes met hers, stripped of their disguise in the privacy of their room. "Is that what I am?" "More human than the ones who caged you," she answered. Their proximity hummed with unacknowledged tension. Darian's hand hesitantly found hers, their fingers interlacing. "There's a colony," Naomi said softly, "on Persephone. Beyond Helios jurisdiction." "We could?" A sharp knock interrupted her. They froze, exchanging alarmed glances. "Room service," called a voice. "We didn't order anything," Darian whispered. Naomi's hand moved to the blaster at her hip. Rising silently, she approached the door while Darian positioned himself in the shadows. The door exploded inward with shocking force. Naomi was thrown back, her blaster skittering across the floor. Through the smoke stepped figures in tactical gear, weapons raised. "Asset recovery," announced the leader, eyes cold behind his visor. "Step away from the merchandise, salvager." Darian moved with blinding speed, disarming one assailant before the man could react. Naomi recovered her blaster, firing at the second attacker. "Time to go," she gasped, grabbing their meager belongings, as alarms blared through the station. They ran to souls bound by circumstance and something deeper neither dared yet name. The Haven and the Storm Lightning split the sky as the Horizon Seeker broke through Terrorless Prime's atmosphere. Rain lashed against the viewport, obscuring the landscape below. "That storm wasn't in the forecast," Naomi muttered, fighting the controls as wind buffeted the small craft. Warning lights flashed across the console to starboard. Engine was failing. Darian strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat. "Can we reach the settlement?" "Not a chance." She pointed to a blinking signal on the navigation display. "But there's a structure about 3 kilometers east. Might be our only option." Their landing was more controlled crash than touchdown. The Horizon Seeker skidded across mud and stone before halting at the edge of a ravine. Through sheets of rain, they glimpsed their sanctuary, abandoned research outpost. Its exterior reclaimed by the planet's aggressive vegetation. "Lovely," Naomi remarked, pulling her jacket tighter as they dashed from the ship, from one laboratory to another. Inside, emergency lights flickered reluctantly to life, revealing dust-covered equipment and forgotten consoles. The facility had been abandoned years ago when Terrellus Prime was deemed too geologically unstable for colonization. "At least it's dry," Darian offered. Shaking water from his hair, they established a makeshift camp in what appeared to be a staff lounge. As night deepened outside, the storm's ferocity increased, thunder rattling the structure's foundations. Naomi worked to repair a damaged communicator while Darian explored. Their escape from Helios Station had been narrow to narrow. Bounty hunters rarely gave up so easily, Naomi. Darian's voice echoed from down a corridor. You need to see this. She found him in a laboratory, staring at a wall of stasis chambers, similar to the one he'd been imprisoned in. Empty, but unmistakable. They were creating more like me, he whispered. This was a Helios black site. Naomi examined a terminal, bringing ancient data back to life. Project Ascendant, she read. Subjects A through M. My brothers and sisters, Darian said hollowly. Where are they now? The answer came as Naomi scrolled through files, reassigned to various facilities after this site was compromised. She looked up at him. They're alive, Darian. Scattered but alive. His expression transformed hope kindling where there had been resignation. Without warning, he pulled her close, his lips finding hers with unexpected tenderness. Naomi froze momentarily before yielding, her arms encircling his neck. The kiss deepened, months of unspoken tension dissolving into hunger. Darian's enhanced senses cataloged everything: her racing pulse, the subtle scent of engine oil and perseverance that clung to her skin, the way her fingers traced the nape of his neck. Oh, I shouldn't, he began. Breaking away because you're not human? She smiled against his lips. That excuse expired days ago. They made love as the storm raged, finding in each other an anchor against the chaos of the universe. Afterward, lying tangled together on emergency blankets, Darian traced patterns on her skin. We could find them, he murmured. The others. Free them. That's suicide, Naomi said, though without conviction. Perhaps his copper eyes held hers. But isn't that what you do? Save the things others discard? She couldn't argue. Something had shifted between them, transforming their flight into a mission. Morning brought clearing skies and difficult decisions. As they prepared to return to the Horizon Seeker, Darian suddenly tensed. Someone's here, he whispered, his enhanced hearing detecting what Naomi could not. They barely reached cover before the facility doors slid open. Armed figures entered in formation, not bounty hunters or Helios security, but something else entirely. Search every room, ordered their leader, a woman with a jagged scar across her jaw. The signal originated from here. Naomi and Darian exchanged glances. They were trapped, surrounded, with nowhere to run. The rebellion's embrace, we know you're here, called the scarred woman, her voice echoing through the abandoned facility. We're not Helios. We're not here to hurt you. Naomi and Darian remained hidden, communicating silently through gestures. 3 exits, all guarded. 7 intruders, heavily armed but not wearing corporate insignia. My name's Talia, the leader continued. We intercepted a data packet sent from this facility's Ascendant project files. We've been hunting these facilities for years. Darian stiffened at the mention of the project. If you're one of the Ascendants, we can help you, Thalia added. We've freed others. The claim was either truth or the perfect bait. Naomi shook her head in warning, but determination had already settled in Darian's eyes. Before she could stop him, he stepped from concealment, hands raised. I'm Darian Voss, D7. Weapons snapped in his direction before Thalia signaled her people to lower them. How did you escape? She saved me, Darian answered as Naomi reluctantly emerged beside him. She saw a person when others saw property. Thalia studied them with calculating eyes. Salvager. Naomi nodded warily. Interesting career change from salvaging things to salvaging people. Thalia holstered her weapon. Welcome to the uprising. Rebels' base was hidden within an asteroid field at the edge of the Systema, labyrinth of connected mining structures repurposed into a sanctuary. For those fleeing corporate control, dozens of enhanced humans like Darian live there alongside sympathizers and activists. We've liberated 11 Ascendants so far, explained Talia as she led them through the facility. Each one designed for specific purposes: infiltration, combat, data analysis, And what happens to them after? Naomi asked. After you free them? Their choice. Some stay to help free others. Some seek new lives elsewhere. Darian absorbed everything with quiet intensity, particularly the combat training facility where other enhanced humans practiced fighting techniques. Naomi noticed his fingers twitching slightly, muscle memory responding to forgotten protocols. That night, in private quarters assigned to them, Naomi confronted him. You're considering joining them, she said. Not a question, but a statement. They're fighting for people like me. Darian sat on the edge of their bed. With their help, we could free the others. By becoming soldiers again. Exactly what you were created to be? His jaw tightened. Sometimes freedom requires fighting, and sometimes fighting costs the very thing you're fighting for. She knelt before him, taking his hands. I've seen what violence does, Darian. It changes people. Their disagreement dissolved into passionate reconciliation, bodies communicating what words could not resolve. Afterward, Naomi traced the barely visible scars where scientists had once opened him to perfect their creation. There's another way, she whispered against his chest. A place called Sanctuary Prime. It's not on any official charts. Darian's fingers paused in her hair. A myth. No. She raised herself on one elbow. I've transported refugees there. It's real a planet where corporate law doesn't reach, where people like you can live without hiding. For 2 weeks, they integrated into the rebellion's rhythm while debating their path forward. Darian trained with other ascendants, while Naomi helped repair the fleet of mismatched vessels. The rebellion had cobbled together. The decision was made for them when Thalia announced a raid on a Helios research vessel 1, carrying 3 captured ascendants. Too risky, Naomi argued during the planning session. Their security has doubled since Darian's escape. Which is why we need him, Thalia countered. His genetic signature will grant access to restricted areas. Darian stood torn between them, between the pull of his artificial family and the woman who'd shown him humanity. That night, as they prepared for the mission, alarm klaxons shattered the base's routine. Security had been breached. Traitor in our ranks, gasped a wounded rebel who staggered into the command center. They knew exactly where to hit us. Evacuation orders echoed through the corridors as Darian pulled Naomi toward the hangar bay. Time for your sanctuary, he said grimly. If it's real, we need it now. Through chaos and weapons fire, they reached the Horizon Seeker. As they lifted off, Naomi glimpsed Thalia's face in the hangar, not surprise, but calculated satisfaction. She knew Naomi realized with horror. She used us as bait. Beyond the star's edge, the Horizon Seeker limped through the uncharted expanse beyond the Verge Nebula. Pursuit had been relentless, 3 Helios interceptors tracking them across 7 systems. Only Naomi's intimate knowledge of smugglers' routes had kept them ahead. Shields at 18%, Darian reported from the co-pilot seat, his voice steady, despite their circumstances. We won't survive another direct hit. Naomi's hands danced across the controls, coaxing every bit of speed from the wounded craft. Ahead, a dense asteroid field offered their last hope of escape. Remember the coordinates I gave you? She asked, plotting a desperate course into the field. 37 Mark 12. Depth code Epsilonine. Darian had memorized them instantly, but the navigation system shows nothing there. Oh, that's a point. Her smile was tight. Sanctuary doesn't appear on charts. Its location passes only by word of mouth. The first asteroid fragments battered against their hull as the Seeker plunged into the field. Behind them, one Helios vessel attempted to follow, miscalculated, and erupted into a brief, oxygen-starved flare against the darkness. One down, Naomi murmured, though without celebration. The remaining interceptors held position at the field's edge, unwilling to risk destruction but equally unwilling to abandon their quarry. A transmission crackled through their coms. Attention, salvage vessel. Surrender the Ascendant asset, and you may go free. This is your final warning. Darian looked to Naomi, conflict evident in his copper eyes. I could use an escape pod. Draw them away while you, not a chance. She cut him off, reaching for his hand across the console. We started this together. Their fingers intertwined as Naomi engaged a sequence that hadn't been used in years, flooding the engines with unshielded plasma, a suicide maneuver. Typically, "What are you doing?" Alarm edged Darian's voice. "Creating a ghost." The engines screamed in protest as vital safeguards were bypassed. "When I give the word, we eject in the secondary craft." Understanding dawned. The Horizon Seeker would continue on autopilot, a flaming decoy, while they slipped away in the small auxiliary vessel normally hidden within the ship's undercarriage. Timing was everything. As the ship cleared the densest part of the field, Naomi activated the separation sequence. The auxiliary craft detached silently, powered down to avoid detection, while the Seeker accelerated toward open space. Through the viewport, they watched as their pursuers took the bait, following the doomed ship. When the Seeker finally detonated a miniature sun, blooming briefly among the stars, Naomi closed her eyes. That vessel had been her home for nearly a decade. "I'm sorry," Darian whispered, understanding her loss. Hours later, with no sign of pursuit, they approached coordinates that showed nothing on scanners. Naomi transmitted a simple coded sequence into the apparent emptiness. Space itself seemed to ripple before them, a cloaking field dissolving to reveal a small blue-green planet orbiting a modest star. "Sanctuary Prime," she breathed. They were escorted planet-side by an eclectic defense force piloting vessels of various origins. On the surface, a community unlike any other awaited enhanced humans, living alongside artificial intelligences. Corporate refugees and other society had discarded. "We've been expecting you," said their greeter, an older man with eyes that suggested ascendant heritage. "Word of your escape reached us months ago. Are others like me here?" Darian asked, wonder in his voice. "7 of your siblings have found their way to us over the years." The man smiled. "Including your twin, E7. As they were shown through the settlement, a harmonious blend of technology and nature, and Naomi walked hand in hand, the weight of pursuit finally lifting from their shoulders. That evening, on a cliff overlooking an iridescent ocean, Darian pulled Naomi close. "You gave up your ship, your livelihood, everything for me," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I salvaged what matters," she replied simply, "and found something worth more than any cargo." As twin moons rose over the sanctuary they'd fought so hard to reach, their lips met in a kiss that carried the promise of a future. Neither had dared imagine one where those discarded by a callous universe could find not just safety, but belonging. "What now?" Darian asked against her lips. Naomi smiled, twining her fingers with his as they gazed upward at stars that had both separated and united them. "Now," she whispered, "we build something new from what others threw away." In their embrace was the truth that had guided their journey across the stars. Sometimes the most precious treasures are those others fail to see the value in, souls deemed defective, lives considered disposable, hearts judged to human, in a world that worshipped perfection. Beyond the edge of charted space, they had found not just sanctuary, but home.